Yep.
Okay, so, we're saying that Roosevelt, if we need to extend that to the possible future site of a hotel or motel, Industrial Street, which is coming down, and then Bott Street is an existing. But you're designating those as main traffic ways. And further consideration, and directed under the authority of this act, then you're declaring that Industrial Circle, which is the cul-de-sac that's platted in section 2, and Moulton Street, which is the east-west street coming off of Roosevelt. It'll go around the curve and intersect with Industrial. So that's what this ordinance does, is basically we're declaring these are necessary traffic ways for the development within our city.
I want to just make sure I heard you right there, Roger. Did you say that Roosevelt right now is already considered a traffic way up until the point where it turns
Right there at the corner.
at the corner by where you,
Express
where
56.
Express 56 is? It's already been designated. All we'd be doing tonight is continuing on for future development.
Right, it gives us that designation moving further north. But again, we can't go all the way to the highway because of KDOT. But this would allow us, if we needed to develop that road, between John Deere, currently, we have the solar field and the detention pond, but that would give a secondary access to lot, it's one, I think it's
Lot 1.
Yeah.
block 1,
Section 1.
section 1, block 1, lot 1.
Okay.
Okay? Then the other two streets are the access for those, light industrial and general commercial at the south end.
I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 1486.
So moved.
Second? I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0. Number 20, resolution 22-08, authorizing traffic way infrastructure improvements.
Okay, just like 2207, this is authorizing the improvement. Basically, you're stating our intent to develop these traffic way connections within the city and providing the payment of those, costs. I believe this is 700 and, sorry, 842,000 would be the financing authority. Again, we're looking at 75% of that coming from a grant.
Okay.
So, I guess to tie it in so this all connect, just like the water project, we have to make sure that we have funding in place. We're declaring that's our intent, but we continue to work on grants and other ways to save the money on the project. You approved an amendment tonight that saved us $1 million, so this would be worked in that same manner. Just because we're declaring it, we're basically declaring this is how much
Right.
the upper end.
And we're still talking about the 0.75% sales tax.
Correct, correct, because this is direct economic development by making this additional lots available for shovel-ready development. So all of those would authorize, in talking to our bond council, we can pay for those through that sales tax that's already in place. That way it doesn't add anything to the mill levy. You get people that are buying things to pay for it, which means also out-of-towners help us pay for it.
Okay. Then I will move to approve resolution 22-08, authorizing traffic way infrastructure improvements and providing for the payment of the cost thereof. Is there a second?
Second.
We move second. Any further discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried 4-0. Number 21 is resolution 22-09. This is just a discussion item tonight. If we decide we want to take any action on this later on, if we find. But, there's been several cities that, passed some resolutions that's, I gotta find this. It's a resolution that, would adopt a conflict of interest policy and for public officials of the city of Marion. I assume you've all reviewed that. Do we need to read it, do a first read on it?
No, it's basically out for everyone to look at it. Synopsis on this is, within our city, our policy already for salaried and hourly employees have a conflict of interest, policy in place.
Right.
However, elected officials, appointed community board members, all of that currently do not have a policy that hopefully directs the activity, helps us all build the confidence of the public.
So this would affect all of our boards
It
at the
would.
same time, and not only the officials of our board.
Correct, they need appointed advisors.
Okay. I assume that, we've all read this and looked at it, not entertain any comments in regards to it.
I just have one comment. I
Good.
noticed in this book that there's one in there about gifts and favors. Why did we leave that out? There's a paragraph in here about gifts and favors.
Right, and currently that applies to paid staff. You have nothing prohibiting
Yeah,
So
for,
this doesn't apply to paid staff, is that what you're telling me? Conflict of
this
interest?
would apply to everyone. If you're an official, appointed, elected, employed, we would all be operating under the same conflict of interest.
it goes on to say any city employee that is termed to be in violation of this act, will be subject to discipline, so they're in this. But it's elected officials, board appointed officials, which we haven't had, and also city employees.
So it's okay if we get gifts in, right? Since it's not in that?
That's whatever optics you want your constituents to have.
I mean, it's just a discussion point now, if we wanna change something, we can
Yeah.
add it in.
I would like to see a restriction on gifts. I mean, every organization I've ever looked at has a restriction on employees receiving gifts.
And would it be acceptable to include the current policy that you quoted out?
Yes, yes, that would work.
Okay. Jerry? Have you looked at this? Do you have any comments?
Jerry, have you had a chance to look at the conflict of interest?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
Okay. Well, we're gonna table this until, our next meeting, and we'll have corrections or the additions added to it,
Okay.
and then we'll go from there, okay? Number 22, 2022 pay and performance salary administration discussion. Roger?
Okay, back when we adopted the budget for this year, within the budget, we allocated a 2% increase, which amounts to $20,250 to be divided amongst all of the city employees. Since that time, we're all experiencing, we've seen what's happening with inflation. And last year's inflation ended up at 7% for the year-end number. Social Security Administration recognized that and did the cost of living increase of 5.9. This year, unfortunately, inflation continues to grow. Current rate, 7.5, of course, that was before today's announcements of sanctions and other things on the world stage. So we're asking of council this evening in order for Tiffany's your HR director for the city, in order to put together, start the review process and do, we need to know what is the amount council will allow. We're asking, of council to please consider something more than 2%, so our employees are not losing ground. When we run the comparison over time, our increases based inflation and what we, as a council, voted in, those increases have ranged from 0%, no increases 1 year, to 2.25, which was last year, 21. So basically, their buying power stayed within, but it's losing a little bit. What's happened in 21 and 22, the buying power of your city staff has gone down about 11%. And we're just asking, if at all possible, you would consider increasing that budgeted amount. As far as where it would come from, and does it mean anything on taxes and all of that? No. Property taxes cannot change, will not change, that's, everyone's already in, okay? So we have to look at other places. We have projected that our 2021 ending utility reserves, even with us utilizing part of that reserve not to increase what the Kansas Power Pool, we still ended up the end of the year. We had projected, I believe it was $1,225,000. The treasurer's report that was approved this evening is 1.4.
I believe it's 100,000 more.
Okay, and then in 21, 57% of the payroll come out of general fund, 43's in the utilities. We didn't transfer all that was authorized to go from utilities over to general fund. So there is, in our estimation, looking through the financial projections, we would be able to cover the salary increases up to a 7.5% total increase through the existing cash reserves that exist, and then our transfer authorization to move it over to cover for those general fund employees.
Question?
This doesn't by any chance include the counselors, does it? My income tax cost me $400 more because I work here. I know. So I'm willing to do that.
You know, we, just last meeting, we gave a 40% increase to the firefighters, and deserve, they deserve that. And I think, our city workers today are really, they're gonna fall way behind if we don't do something. And I know we approved 2%, but at the time we approved that, that was fair and equitable, but we all know what's happened just recently.
I did some kind of quick research on this, and the average pay raise this year is actually higher than it has been in years past too, and that number was somewhere between 3.4 and 3.9% was what the average pay increase was nationwide. Me personally, I would be fine doing a 5% increase, I think, because that's, we're still beating all national averages for pay increases if we do 5%.
We're talking about 5 plus the 2 we've already authorized?
I would say no, 5 total.
Just 5%?
Right, because we're still a full percent above, or more than a percent above what national averages are for pay increases just this year.
Mm-hmm. Bruce, what do you feel?
Well, I can't vote for 5%, I would give it 2.5%.
Total.
Gary, you have an opinion?
Well, I tell you, yes, I do. I know that there's a lot of other things that are gonna be going up that we have to buy, so I'm looking at it, I gotta be a little bit careful what I say here. Is that plain talk?
Well, would you recommend any increase at all?
Well, I would go for the 2.5, yes.
On top of the 2%?
On top of what?
Well, we've already authorized 2%.
Oh, yeah, well, no, 2.25 total.
Okay?
And that's why I said it's just 2.5.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would go with the 5%. You know, our employees are gonna be falling way behind. Gas prices are going through the roof. Commodities are going through the roof. Groceries are going through the roof.
And ultimately,
Yeah, everything else.
Ultimately,
Everything's increasing.
our people are the most important part of our staff. I mean, without them, none of this goes.
Yeah. If we can't provide, you know, if we have people that's gonna start looking for jobs at higher pay, we're gonna suffer for that. Our citizens are gonna suffer for that.
Already crunched for employees.
Well, we kinda need to look at their benefits too, though, you know, what we give them.
Well, yeah, but
I mean, if they
you know,
go to a
you're,
different job, they're not gonna get the benefits that the city gets, we pay into.
that's not necessarily true.
Oh, yeah.
That is not necessarily true at all.
We do
But
have
you're
to-
talking about a 0.5% raise for somebody who's making $14 an hour. What's a 0.5%? You know, 10 cents? That's what you're talking about.
I'm talking about 2.5%, not 0.5%.
We've already authorized 2%. So you're increasing a 0.5%,
Okay.
so you're only talking 10 cents an hour on somebody that has a job that's
Well, I
making
can't vote for
$15.
5%.
I'm just looking at it as trying to help them, like you said, put food on the table. I mean, I agree our benefits
Okay.
are great,
Plus, we
but
gave them a
unfortunately
20% discount on utilities,
Mhm.
did we not?
that's true,
We gave them Christmas bonus, did we not?
that's true.
And I'm not saying that these employees don't deserve it,
And what-
because they do,
Yeah,
but I can't go more than 2.5%,
Why?
because, you know, what's our constituents gonna say when we give them 5%? We don't get 5% on my personal,
I'm getting one constituent right now.
we get more than 5%? See?
I think folks, I'm pretty sure that the COLA for Social Security was either 5% or more.
Okay.
5.9%.
Dave, do you know what my
Yeah,
social security?
5.9%.
Okay. Do you know what my social security is? It's $100.
I,
And I get 5% of that? Give me a break.
But that's kind of the same argument that the mayor's making though for giving them a 0.5% raise on $13 or $14 an hour.
But we already gave them 2%.
Right, so we're just proposing to give another 3, help them out a little bit. I mean, we're
Well, I still
in
can't vote for it. because I gotta
unprecedented
put it on
times
motion
right now
if I
in
want
terms
to.
of inflation.
well, this is a discussion right now. That's what it is. Okay, well, we'll table this, I'd like to have Jerry present at the meeting
And Chris.
and Chris present at the meeting, and we can readdress this. So I would suggest you put this as an agenda item again on the next meeting. Counselors, everything you wanna share?
I do, and it still bothers me, we have this petition before us, Mr. Stellers, what is your impression of this petition and how should it be handled?
So, the way I view it right now, this petition is essentially, an open letter, because at the time it was filed, it was not in relation to anything, the council hadn't acted. So right now, it has no bearing on the proceedings today.
Okay, so if they'd come in and file it tomorrow, then it would have bearing on what we did today, is that correct?
I can't speak to that, just because frankly, I received this about maybe 30 minutes prior to the meeting, so I don't wanna speak before I've had a chance to fully look into everything it's saying in regards to what it's citing, et cetera, and then cross-reference that with the statutory requirements. But what I can confidently say is, in terms of the council meeting Right now, it doesn't have any bearing.
Okay, but the statutory requirements is that the amendment has to be passed by at least three-fourths vote of all, no, three-fourths vote of all of the members of the governing body when the petition exists. So I would say, file it again.
Well, our attorney's told us he's not in a position to litigate matters that are brought to his attention 30 minutes before. Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, I think it's a moot point right now.
That's all I have to say.
Okay. Anything? Public forum, anyone wish to speak to the council?
I just have a statement to make that.
Can you come forward,
Okay,
because
sorry.
I'm not sure Jerry could hear you. from
Oh,
back
okay.
there.
Jerry?
No, I couldn't.
Okay, Jerry, I'm here. This is Ruth Lang. I'm not opposed to anything out in the industrial park. I think it's great that we're putting something out there. I was just concerned about the process you're going through. I mean, he said that it's allowed. That's not what I read, but then he's the attorney and I'm not, so. And so that's the way it is. And I just really don't want traffic on our street anymore than what it already is. And I realize now that you said that actually from Kellyson south was already considered a traffic way. And we do get local delivery, with bigger trucks. But if there's anything bigger than that, the first 2 blocks of Roosevelt coming off of Main Street are just littered with vehicles on both sides. You just weave and weave and weave, and you can't see a big truck going through there any bigger than what they already do. And kids, there's kids out there, they wanna ride their bicycles and stuff, and, but that's probably on every street. And,
I live on Roosevelt Street, and I have
Right.
kids, so
Yeah.
I'm with you, and, yep.
yeah, I just,
Taking that into
and some blocks don't have any traffic where they're parked beside the street. But then there's some that are just, they don't have any drive parking, I guess, I don't know. That, and then another thing was, and it's probably a silly comment, but why are the grants always due the next day? Every time, like this one is now, you have to apply for it by the 28th. Did you not know these things before, or they just come up? I mean, it just, I don't know. it's just a
may I
question.
answer that, please?
Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, or fortunately, our lieutenant governor is also the head of Congress,
Okay,
okay? This is spark money, which came from the federal
okay.
to the state.
Mhm,
They had this large bucket of money,
mhm,
county had access to it as well. They weren't able to expend $100 million of it.
okay,
So the lieutenant governor and governor worked on it from January 15th, when they determined that it was a budget windfall.
mhm,
How could they get it to stimulate the economy?
mhm,
So they announced it on the 1st with the 28th, because they have to have spark money allocated and committed for by the end of this year to
Mhm.
report to the feds. So,
okay. I said,
other-
that's not physical year, is that like July or is that December?
It's December, for
December.
some reason they're using
No,
December 31st.
They're using the federal fiscal year, which is actually September 30th,
Okay. But it just seemed
because
odd,
it was, since it was
time-
federal money.
Yeah,
It's just
no, our
budget.
other grants, like the CDBG, the water grant,
Yeah, they're,
we worked on that for 2 years before we
Okay.
got awarded that. The KDOT downtown grants that we use for that,
Okay.
as well as the resurfaces, we have about 60 days notice.
I didn't realize it was Sparks money, but, and if the state didn't allocate it out, well, then you can't do anything with it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you're doing too, and I appreciate the electrical crews getting out and fixing the lines. These are the city crews that got out and put some new poles and rearranged things, and so, that was good.
Well, thank you. Anyone else?
Alex Smith, so my understanding is that I put the petition in tomorrow, is that correct? I can submit it tomorrow, is that right?
I wanna be clear that what my comments were, my comments are not, about what you can do from here on out. My comment is just solely to say, I have not had a chance to review this, so I can't comment on it at this time.
Okay, so where do I stand?
So in terms of the petition right now, it is not binding on this proceeding. Because based on how long I've had to review it, that's all we can say at this time.
All right, so can I submit it or not again?
Or you can submit it again if you wish.
Okay,
You know, that's your prerogative.
okay. And you all have to have copies again for tomorrow, or?
I can't answer that.
Will it be the same petition, Pat?
Yes.
Well, I would say we probably don't need copies then, because we have copies.
Okay. Okay, that's fine, that's what I wanted to know.
Anyone else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
There's my ear.
Second.
Moved and seconded, Jerry, to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, 4-0.